Hello and welcome to this exploring session, and today we are beginning our journey through The Three Ladies of London by Robert Wilson, not to be confused with The Three Lords and Three Ladies of London, also by Robert Wilson, because that's the sequel, which we will look at in the future. But at the moment we're looking at the earlier play, just the Three Ladies of London before they get co-opted by the patriarchy. And this is a play from around the early 1580s. I think the date I have knocking around is around 1581. And it is a play of which I know very, very little about. So I'm quite looking forward to looking at it. It may at some point later in its life have been appropriated by the Queen's Men, but it also may not. I'm not 100% certain on that. But its sequel certainly was. And so there is part of this connecting with other plays that we've been looking at over the last few months, and as we draw our journey to a close. It may have connections with other plays that we have done or will be doing as well, but we will leave that for discussion further down the line. To gather our forces, go through this play, we have this wonderful team of people with us today, reading Lady Love, and Artifex today is...
Hello there, my name's Sascha Cooper and I'm a professional actress and performer from Brighton in the UK.
And reading Fraud today is...
Hello, my name is Lynn Freitas. I'm a teacher. I live in the northwestern United States.
And reading Usury and Mercatore is...
I'm Eric, and I do not have a helicopter hat. It's just my fan.
Today, reading Lady Conscience is...
Liza Graham. I'm in London. I don't even know.
Reading the Prologue and Simony today is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott. I'm neither an actor nor an academic, and I'm still based in Suffolk in the UK.
Today, reading Simplicity and Lady Lucre today is...
I'm Lois Potter, retired academic living in London.
And reading Fame and the lawyer Creticus is...
Alexandra, and I'm very pleased to know just a little bit less than Robert does about this play, which in my case is nothing.
And finally reading Dissimulation, who's currently invisible but may one day become a moving face, picture, as well as sound, is...
Hi, I'm Tamara. I'm an actress. I'm currently based in Germany, usually based in London, though. I will appear later.
And that is our team. I'm your host, Robert Crighton, and I'll be trying to navigate through any textual questions that might arise. I'm hoping that the text we have here in front of us functions well. I mentioned to the readers in advance that there might be some elements of this text which are problematic. I don't know, actually, to be fair, whether there are bits that are problematic, but the moment I notice that there is a usurer who is Jewish, I'm sort of expecting there's going to be something wrong with this early modern text that we will not be endorsing, but then we may be pleasantly surprised. Who knows? So without further ado, we're going to read the prologue. So prologue, please, prologue.
To sit on honour's seat it is a lofty reach. To seek the praise by making brags oft times doth get a breach. We list not ride the rolling racks that dim the crystal skies. We mean to set no glimmering glance before your courteous eyes. We search not Pluto's pensive pit, nor taste of Limbo Lake. We do not show a warlike fight, a sword and shield to shake. We speak not of the powers divine, ne yet of furious sprites. We do not seek high hills to climb, nor talk of love's delights. We do not here present to you the thresher with his flail, ne do we here present to you the milkmaid with her pail. We show you not of country toil, as hedger with his bill. We do not bring the husbandman to lop and top with skill. We play not here the gardener's part, to plant, to set, to sow. You marvel then, what stuff we have to furnish out our show. Your patience then, we crave a while, till we have trimmed our stall. Then, young and old, Come and behold our wares and buy them all. And if our wares shall seem to you well woven, good and fine, we hope we shall your custom have again another time.
I really like this prologue. This show is not going to be this. It's not going to be this. It's not going to be this. It's not going to be this. What it's going to be, you'll find out.
God, the alliteration in there was a bit of a so-and-so to get head round.
You did it well, though.
Yeah, but from absolutely cold. I think if I'd looked at it, I might have been frightened by it.
Yeah, there's all sorts of references that could be to other plays that might, warlike fight. I think we can all think of what some of those plays might have been from the repertoire at the time. The Milkmaid. Isn't there a lost play called Merry Milkmaids or something like that the audiences were really, really fond of? Might be a little later.
I believe so, yeah.
Because there was one where I think they were trying to put on Dew of Malta or something, and the audience said, "No, we want Merry Milkmaids. We want Merry Milkmaids," and they tried to put something else on and said, "No, we still want Merry Milkmaids," and they ended up putting on Merry Milkmaids by audience demand before a riot happened.
Boy actors being like FML.
It's one of those backstage stories I really want to actually stage, because I think that's just the chaos of which costume, what play are we doing? Anyway, sorry. Back to the play we're actually discussing. So yeah, any thoughts about this prologue? Apart from it's quite fun.
Yeah, that metaphor at the end for the performance as commodity is, I don't know what to make of it, but it certainly got my attention. I don't know that I've seen that before. That I've never noticed a prologue or any other text making this comparison between a performance as something tangible to sell, and specifically textiles. Then if our wares shall seem to you well woven, good and fine, making an oblique reference to the pun between text and textile. It just caught my attention. I'm not really sure what to make of it.
I think Alan performed it nicely as well by sort of doing come by kind of motion with it as well. I think that worked really well.
I was wondering whether you pitched this as being a market barker in some ways from the talking markets you get in the Midlands. Or the trouble is, whenever I see anything that's headed the prologue, there is a terrible, terrible temptation to try and channel Frankie Howard.
Yeah, I don't think it's a Frankie Howard. I think you're right with the market stall. I think that's how it functions. Eric, were you waving earlier?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's short and sweet, unlike other prologues that we've seen. Like as in the past week, not necessarily because I've only been here a week. So yeah.
But it's short, but it's also it's long enough for you to get the repetition element of going, okay, it's not going to be that, it's not going to be, and then it refuses to tell you what it's going to actually be. Lois.
Yeah, I was just thinking of the exact opposite of this, but with the same image is Johnson's prologue to Bartholomew Fair, or rather the induction, where you not only get a great deal of what is not going to be in the play and somebody complaining about it, and then you get a scrivener coming and actually drawing up articles with the audience about what they're allowed to do and not do. And I think they're allowed to criticize according to how much they've paid for their seats. And it's all a very elaborate economic metaphor.
So yeah, maybe this is the benchmark for that kind of thing. I think I'm with Lynn. I don't know if there's anything earlier that's done this same kind of game. There may be stuff later. Alexandra, muted at the moment.
I'm muted. When it started, I got the impression that it might be sort of either playing with a tradition by subverting it, a prologue tradition by subverting it, or potentially starting something that other prologues play with later, because it immediately put me in mind of Not Marching Now in Fields of Thrasimene. The way that Faustus starts as a prologue is, we're not doing this, we're not doing this, we're not doing this, let me tell you about Faustus. So this felt to me as though it was going, remember that? That was fun, wasn't it? Yeah, we're going to do the same, except we're not going to tell you about the main character. We're just going to keep telling you about the things we're not telling you about.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Absolutely, you're right, and I think both this and Faustus may also refer to other plays, either that the company did or that other companies are doing at the same time.
True.
Because I think not marching in the fields of Thrasymene refers to Tamburlaine. It's like, if you came to see another Marlowe play in hopes of that, you're not getting it.
Yeah,
Or in
and
this
it's a
case,
really
maybe
wonderful-
they're throwing shade at another company. You know, we don't do milkmaids.
And it's a very wonderful reversal of something that happens a lot later in film trailers, where you're going from the makers of this and that and this and that. This is kind of the opposite of that. It's going, this is not this, nor that, nor this, nor that. Wonderful.
And now
Have you had enough
something
of Marvel
completely
films?
It's as if RuPaul's Drag Race shade literally came in early.
I expect we'll have plenty of shade in this play.
Yes.
We'll get read to filth.
Any
Phil.
additional thoughts before we move into the text itself, Eric?
I was gonna say, well, I just hope there's no stones in this, but, given our experience with Liza last week, of the peddler's prophecy.
Yes, the Schrodinger's pack situation there, which other
There
people
might be-
go and watch the Peddler's Prophecy. There's some really interesting material in that.
Or don't. It's it's full of terrible rants against immigrants that are in some pretty
it's
terrible
not
terms.
unproblematic, but it's it's a really tricky play to figure out what to do with. Anyway, historically fascinating, but really difficult stage. Anyway, let's go into Three Ladies of London proper as a first scene occurs. So, enter Fame, sounding before Love and Conscience.
Lady Conscience, what shall we say to our estates? To whom shall we complain? Or how shall we abridge such fates as heapeth up our pain? 'Tis Lucre now that rules the rout, 'tis she is all in all. 'Tis she that holds her head so stout, in fine, 'tis she that works our fall. Oh, Conscience, I fear a day, that we by her and usury shall be quite cast away.
Indeed, I fear the worst. For every man doth sue, and comes from countries strange and far, of her to have a view. Although they ought to seek true love and conscience clear, but love and conscience few do like that lean on Lucre's chair. Men ought be ruled by us. We ought in them bear sway. So should each neighbour live by other in good estate alway.
For Lucre men come from Italy, Barbary, Turkey, from Jewry, nay, the pagan himself endangers his body to gape for her pelf. They forsake mother, prince, country, religion, kith and kin. Nay, men care not what they forsake, so Lady Lucre they win, that we poor ladies may sigh to see our states thus turned and tossed, and worse is like to be where Lucre rules the most.
You say the truth, yet God, I trust, will not admit it so, that love and conscience by Lucre's lust should catch an overthrow.
Good ladies, rest content, and you no doubt shall see them plagued with painful punishment for such their cruelty. And if true love and conscience live from Lucre's lust lascivious, then fame a triple crown will give, which lasteth aye victorious.
God grant that conscience keep within the bounds of right, and that vile Lucre do not haunt her heart with deadly spite.
And grant, O God, that love be found in city, town, and country, which causeth wealth and peace abound, and pleaseth God Almighty.
But, ladies, is't your pleasure to walk abroad a while and recreate yourselves with measure, your sorrows to beguile?
Pass on, good Fame, your steps do frame, on you we will attend, and pray to God that holds the rod our states for to defend.
And they exit. So we get another sort of introductory moment here that's quite nice. I like Fame blowing on the trumpet to for the entrance of Lady Love and Lady Conscience. We have collected two ladies so far. Two ladies. Title suggests there is one more to come. So that's 2 of the ladies with fame. Thoughts. Who wants to jump in? Tamara, now that we can see you,
I'm human.
how did you find the 2 ladies?
Well, one of the things that went through my head was you mentioned something about foreigners, and that seems to come up again. Otherwise, I'm quite liking the other back and forth with the I'm trying to find the line, sorry, but when it's like, oh, we should rule, we should do this, we should do that. It's so nice and conversational somehow.
Mm-hmm. Liza.
Yes, Conscience is kind of more human than we're used to seeing, say, someone named Conscience in a medieval play. She's human, and she's not above pettiness, and neither is love. You know, they're like, oh, things would be so nice if that bitch weren't here.
It's true, actually.
Okay, other thoughts? Alan?
I mean, you could almost play them as the 2 old ladies over the garden fence. You know, who was the comic? Les Dawson.
Oh, yes.
You could almost play it like that, couldn't you?
What shall we say to our estates, or to whom shall we complain? Yeah, I can see that to a degree. Other thoughts? Pushback on that? Agreement? Other ideas?
Well, in a weird sort of way, for me, when I was reading Love, it was that kind of cross between the 2 states, because it's conversational, it's human, it's more human than we've seen previous incarnations of Love. But interestingly enough, what's lovely about this is the gossipy factor behind it. You know, it's not just the neighbours over the wall. When I, for some bizarre reason, I had the 2 Ronnies come into my mind when they played the old ladies, and also Victoria Wood. You know that what's that sketch? There was 2 sketches. There's particularly one sketch, though, when they're dressed as old ladies on the seafront during a song, and it very much reminded me of that, you know. You know, when they've got the legs open and they're just being very, very conversational and light, but they're very brutal with it, and it's lovely writing, actually.
And we're in Fortuna land, by the way. We should just bring that up again. It's always that interesting question, you know, how that flows. It still flows in quite a conversational way. It's quite nice to see that it can be a more dynamic verse structure than people think it is.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we've got enough there to be going on with. Let's move on to scene 2. We've got a sense of the 2 ladies in opposition of 1 lady. And so we're going to go to some other characters now. Enter Dissimulation, having on a farmer's long coat and a cap, and his poll and beard painted motley.
Nay, no less than a farmer, a right honest man, but my tongue cannot stay me to tell what I am. Nay, who is it that knows me not by my party-coloured head? They may well think that see me, my honesty is fled. Tush! A fig for honesty. Let that go. Sith men, women, and children my name and doings do know. My name is Dissimulation, and no base mind I bear, for my outward effects my inward zeal do declare. For men do dissemble with their wives, and their wives with them again, so that in the hearts of them I always remain. The child dissembles with his father, the sister with her brother, the maiden with her mistress, and the young man with his lover. There is dissimulation between neighbour and neighbour, friend and friend, one with another, between the servant and his master, between brother and brother. Then why make you it strange that ever you knew me, seeing so how I range throughout every degree? But I forget my business. I'll towards London as fast as I can, to get entertainment of one of the 3 ladies, like an honest man.
And here enter Simplicity, like a miller, all mealy, with a wand in his hand.
They say there is preferment in London to have. Mass, and there be, I'll be passing and brave. Why, I'll be no more a miller, because the maidens call me Dusty Paul. One thumps me on the neck, and another strikes me on the knoll, and you see I am a handsome fellow. Mark the comportments of my stature. Faith, I'll go seek peradventure and be a serving creature.
Whither away, good fellow, I pray thee declare?
Marry, I'll clear thee to London. Would thou didst go there?
What if I did? Would it be better for thee?
Ay, marry, should it, for I love honest company.
Agreed. There is a bargain. But what shall I call thee?
Yeah, 'cause thou art an honest man, I'll tell thee. My name is Simplicity.
A name agreeing to thy nature. But stay, here comes more company.
Indeed, enter Fraud with a sword and a buckler like a ruffian.
Huff! Once aloft, and I may hit in the right vein, where I may beguile easily without any great pain. I will flaunt it and brave it after the lusty swash. I'll deceive thousands. What care I who lie in the lash?
What? Fraud! Well met! Whither travellest thou this way?
To London, to get entertainment there, if I may. Of the three ladies, Lucre, Love, and Conscience, I care not whom I serve, the devil so I get my pence.
Oh, Fraud, I know thee for a deceitful knave. And art thou gotten so Bonfacian and brave? I knew thee when thou dwelledst at a place called Gravesend, and the guests knew thee too, because thou wast not their friend. For when thou shouldst bring reckoning to the guests, thou would put twice as much, and swear it cost thy dame no less. So thou didst deceive them, and thy dame too, and because they spied thy knavery, away thou didst go. Then thou didst go into Hertfordshire to a place called Ware, and because horses stood at hay for a penny a night there, so that thou couldst get nothing that kind of way, thou didst grease the horses' teeth, so that they should not eat hay. Then thou wouldst tell the rider his horse no hay would eat. Then the man would say, give him some other kind of meat. Sir, shall I give him oats, vetches, peas, barley, or bread? But whate'er thou gavest him, thou stolest 3/4 when he was in bed. And now thou art so proud with thy filching and cousining art. But I think one day thou wilt not be proud of the rope and the cart. Take a wise fellow's counsel, Fraud. Leave thy cousining and filching.
Thou whoreson rascal swad, avaunt! I bang thee for thy brawling. How darest thou defame a gentleman that has so large a living?
Ah, goodly gentleman ostler. I think none of you all will believe him.
What a clench-poop drudge is this? I can forbear him no more.
Let Fraud make as though he would strike him, but let Dissimulation step between them.
My good friend, Fraud, refrain and care not therefore. 'Tis Simplicity that patch. He knoweth not good from bad. And to stand in contention with him, I would think you were mad. But tell me, Fraud, tell me, hast thou been an ostler in thy days?
Tut, I have proved in 100 such ways. But when I could not thrive by all other trades, I became a squire to wait upon jades. And then was then, and now is now. But let that pass. I am, as thou seest. What care I the devil what I was?
You say you go to London. In faith, have with you then.
Nay, come and go with me, good honest man. For if thou go with him, he will teach thee all his knavery. There is none will go with him that hath any honesty. Ah, a bot on thy motley beer. I know thee. Thou art Dissimulation. And hast thou got an honest man's coat to semble this fashion? I'll tell thee what, thou wilt even semble in cog with thine own father. A couple of false knaves together, a thief and a broker. Thou makes townsfolks believe thou art an honest man. In the country thou dost nothing but cog, lie, and foist with hypocrisy. You shall be hanged together and go along together for me. For if I should go, the folks would say we were knaves all three.
And here enter Simony, Usury, hand in hand.
Friend Usury, I think we are well near at our journey's end. But knowest thou whom I've espied?
No,
Fraud, our great friend.
and I see another that has now come into my remembrance.
Who's that?
Marry, Master Davy Dissimulation, a good helper and our old acquaintance.
Now all the cards in the stock are dealt about. The four knaves in a cluster comes ruffling out.
What? Fraud and dissimulation, happily found out. I marvel what piece of work you two go about.
Faith, sir, we met by chance, and towards London are bent.
And to London we hie. It is our chiefest intent to see if we can get entertainment of the ladies or no.
And for the self-same matter, even thither we go.
Then we are luckily well met, and seeing we all wish for one thing, I would we our wills, our wishing, might win.
Yes, they will be sure to win, the devil and all, or else they'll make a man to spew out his gall. Oh, that vile usury. He lent my father a little money, and for breaking one day, he took the fee simple of his house and mill quite away. And yet he borrowed not half a quarter as much as it cost, but I think if it had been a shilling, it had been lost. So he killed my father with sorrow and undone me quite. And you deal with him, sirs, you shall find him a knave full of spite. And Simony, per se Simony too, he is a knave for the nonce. He loves to have 20 livings at once, and if he let an honest man, as I am, to have one, he'll let it so dear that he shall be undone. And he seeks to get parsons' livings into his hand, and puts in some odd dunce that to his payment will stand. So if the parsonage be worth 40 or 50 pound a year, he will give one 20 nobles to mumble service once a month there.
What rascal is he that speaketh by such villainy?
As he was at us erewhile too. It is no matter, it is a simple soul called simplicity. But here come two of the ladies, therefore make ready.
Yes, indeed. Here enter the love and conscience.
But which of us shall first break the matter?
Marry, let Simony do it, for he finally can flatter.
Nay, sirs, because none of us shall have preeminence above other. We will sing in fellowship together, like brother and brother.
Of truth, agreed, my masters. Let it be so.
And they sing, I'll sing too.
So, yes, what we'll do is we'll ask Fraud. I think you can be all of the men. You don't have to sing it, just say the dialogue. And Conscience, obviously, you just do Conscience's responses. This is a song, people, but you don't need to sing.
Good ladies, take pity and grant our desire.
Speak boldly and tell me what is't you require.
Your service, good ladies, is what we do crave.
We like not nor list not such servants to have.
If you entertain us, we trust he will be. But if you refrain us, then most unhappy. We will come, we will run, we will bend at your beck. We will ply, we will hie, for fear of your check.
You feign, you do flatter, you lie, you do prate, you will steal, you will rob, you will kill in your hate. I deny you, I defy you, then cease of your talking. I refrain you, I disdain you, therefore get you walking.
And we'll just pause there. We're about halfway through the scene. I really like the fact that the music here is used to actually advance the plot slightly, in the sense that the song is used to establish the two ladies' antipathy to the majority of the other people on stage. Yeah, lots of things going on here. Clench poop is tight arse, I assume.
T-shirt line.
Yeah. What a clench poop drudge this is. I love Simplicity's talking about what happened with Usury. It reminds me of No Cow.
Or any modern banker.
Yeah, but the whole thing about it was only one day he was behind on arrears, and no, everything went. But I think we should go back to dissimulation first. So he's got makeup, his face and beard painted motley, so sort of patchwork. What is this guy? What's going on with dissimulation? Thoughts from the room? Who was reading dissimulation, and did you feel like you got a handle on what dissimulation is?
No. I'm just along for the ride. I did kind of love that I'm clearly trying to protect simplicity a little bit from getting bullied by everybody else, but I'm not sure if that's sincere.
It's not.
No. Protect the mark. Protect the mark. You don't want to scare him off too quickly, because you've got to try and use him somehow. Lois, you were saying something.
Yeah, well, I'm just wondering what sort of outfit this is, because simplicity eventually recognizes him. Does he pull the beard off, do you think? I mean, there must be some way that it's a disguise which works up to a point, but then what?
Well, Lynn, as a costumer, will doubtless have thoughts on this, but dissimulation has a farmer's long coat, which would have been made of some kind of durable material like russet wool. But his hair and beard are in his true colors. So he's probably wearing a wig and a beard of which one side is dyed one color and one side is dyed another color, because he talks about his party-colored head. And party-colored usually meant one color on one side, one color on the other side. Although by this point, you could have patches of different colors. So by his clothing, he looks like an honest farmer, but when you see him close up, you see the real him. Mm-hmm. I think.
Yeah, I think the half and half is probably right, rather than like patched. But yeah, he's two-faced. He's this when he turns this way, he's that when he turns that way. And I'm guessing the farmer is, as Lois pointed out when we were doing, I think it was Lois, during a different reading, a farmer is probably not an agriculturalist, he's probably a tax farmer again. What do you think, Laura?
Just say like a miller.
No. Well, simplicity is the miller, and simplicity seems in the Italian comedy starting in the late 1580s. There was a clown named Pedrolino, who later became the French Pierrot, whose origin was that he was a miller or a mill worker, and his clothes would be white and his face would be white with flour, and that's basically why clowns have white faces now, is because that particular clown became so popular. But he was very much a simple clown and a shy clown, rather than being a deceptive clown or a merry clown. So I don't know whether this author was familiar with that kind of Italian comedy, but it's really interesting to see that as a parallel.
Yeah, so if dissimulation is basically doing a Tommy Cooper sketch, of being one face one side, one face the other, I mean, I don't know if that works dynamically or whether that's just trying to overlay too much onto that. So we've got simplicity, like a miller, honest chap. Are we thinking for simplicity? He's not stupid, but he is more down to earth. Is perhaps that fair, or is he going to turn out to be stupid? Who knows? Thoughts?
No, he misuses words, but that's about it.
So is that sort of more ignorance rather than actual stupidity? Just more down to earth chap. Because he sees through everyone pretty quickly.
Yeah.
He's met them all. He knows who they are. They owe him money. At least family terms. It's got the Dissimulation's opening section is there's something quite riotous about that. Settles down a bit after then. It's interesting, the fight between fraud and simplicity, dissimulation stopping that fight from happening. Which I think what Tamara was talking about, trying to protect him, he's probably not. He's just trying to not draw attention to themselves, because what is it they want? They want to get in with the ladies in some fashion, which is probably nefarious. Other thoughts? Alexandra.
I have no idea where to place it in the world of the time or anything. But the specificity of the accusations that simplicity levels at fraud. You know, I knew you when you were in Gravesend and you said this and you did that, and then you were in Ware in Hertfordshire, not just anywhere, Hertfordshire Ware, and you did this and that. I have no idea where this comes from or how kind of it contextualizes, but there was something very interesting about it.
It's a really interesting con that he was running. The whole thing about, the horse won't eat, so that person has to procure more goods, which he can then sell on. If I understood that right. Alan, I saw a hand.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether those two references are intended to amuse the metropolitan, what would have been primarily a metropolitan audience. Londoners laughing at anybody outside the M25.
Yes, because all roads lead to London in this play, and we're not having any milkmaids. Remember, none of that. No rustic action. Liza first, then Lois.
Just quickly, there was at least one inn in Ware, which was a popular place for people to stay, presumably on their way to and from London. The inn famously had a really large bed, which is now in the Victoria and Albert Museum, the Great Bed of Ware. And it sounds like, the bed itself as well, it was a tourist attraction. So this sounds like an actual scam that the people at the inn may have actually been running, and it may have been a reference for the audience. I don't know whether, from what I know of horses, it would be a lot easier to grease the hay than to grease their teeth. And if you grease the hay, they might not eat it either. But people definitely did. You could pay an hostler to feed your horse, and he could feed it like a fraction of what he promised to feed it, and fill the rest out with straw, which a horse can eat hay, which is dried grass, but they cannot eat straw, which are the dried stalks of wheat.
Lois.
Yeah. Yes, I can give you later a reference to this greasing scam. And I was going to mention the Great Bed of Ware. There's also, I think with Gravesend, I think these were both places well known to Londoners. People did often ride out to Ware for various reasons. And I think that there's a play called Northward Ho in which Ware figures. I've come across a reference to Gravesend toast. Gravesend was the place from which they took people coming from abroad, I think, took a ferry into downtown London, if you call it that. And apparently the toast they got there, it was in the early morning, was always last night's toast. So that a Gravesend toast was basically an expression for something you really don't want. So it could well be that, not necessarily that these inns were doing exactly this, but just that people would have been to these inns or have, thought it was funny to hear about scams attached to particular places.
Yes, there are. I've got a couple of footnotes here suggesting that Gravesend certainly had a number of prominent inns, and that Ware did various horsey-based sporting activities. So they have a lot of horses about. So these are all very apparent things that probably people at the time, or a reasonable percentage of people, might know about, and that it fits at the very least. And especially if this is from a touring company of some description, they possibly have passed through these places and they know them well, and helps make the play all about London function better if you're touring it somewhere else that's not London. Insert place name here. Any other thoughts before we move forward, Alan?
Yeah, I was just thinking both Gravesend and Ware would have been probably about a day's journey from central London at that time. So it was far enough out of town for it to be those funny country people, but close enough that it would be a known place names.
Mm. Right, we've got Simony and Usury entering hand in hand They're together all the time, aren't they? It's just lovely friendship that they've got there.
I just imagine them skipping in. I don't know why, but that's how I kind of imagine them coming onto stage. But yeah, that's just me.
We're off to see the wizard. Yeah,
and they're the two singers. They sing together.
So maybe the younger members of the company, maybe boys who are good singers, perhaps. We will.
Tweedledum and Tweedledee spring to mind for some reason.
They do speak in unison a couple of times as well, so there is that. Okay, let us move on deeper into the scene. So we've just had the song. Conscience and Lady Conscience, Lady Love have entered and have defied and denied the majority of the men in the room. So Conscience takes this up in normal speech.
What? Fraud, dissimulation, usury, and simony, how dare you for shame presume so boldly, as once to show yourselves before love and conscience, not yielding your lewd lives first to repentance? Think you not that God will plague you for your wicked practices, if you intend not to amend your vile lives so amiss? Think you not God knows your thoughts, words, and works, and what secret mischief in the hearts of you lurks? Then how dare you offend his heavenly majesty with your dissembling deceit, your flattery, and your usury?
Tut, sirs, seeing Lady Conscience is so scrupulous, let's not speak to her, for I see it is frivolous. But what say you, Lady Love? Will you grant us favor?
I'll no such servants so ill of behaviour, servants more fitter for lucre than love, and happy are they which refrain for to prove shameless, pitiless, graceless, and quite past honesty. Then who of good conscience but will hate your company?
Here is scrupulous good conscience and nice love indeed. Tush, if they will not, others will. I know we shall speed.
But, lady, I stand still behind, for I am none of their company.
Why, what art thou? Oh, I know, thou art Simplicity.
I' faith, I am Simplicity, and would fain serve ye.
No, I may have no fools to dwell with me.
Why, then, Lady Love, will you have me then?
Aye, Simplicity, thou shalt be my man.
But shall I be your good man?
Aye, my good man, indeed.
Aye, but I would be your good man and snap up a wedding with good speed.
No, love may not marry in any case with Simplicity, but if thou wilt serve me, I'll receive it willingly. And if thou wilt not, what remedy?
Yes, I will serve you. But will you go into dinner? For I am hungry.
Come, Lady Conscience, pleaseth you to walk home from this company?
With right good will, for their sights pleaseth not me.
And exit Lady Love and Conscience. Just a couple of thoughts that just fly in there. This question of I'll have no fools. For Simplicity, is Simplicity a natural fool or not? Discuss what kind of fool he could be. And sort of just we haven't really talked about the sort of traditions that this is feeding from, as it were. You know, it's a relatively late play in terms of doing a allegorical figure kind of morality tale. But it really is full of all these elements that we've seen in, you know, things like the various marriage of wit, will, science, wisdom things. In fact, actually, I think the song functions quite similarly to some of the songs we had there as well. So there seems to be a tangential connection with some of those later morality interlude things. Though how deep that runs, I don't know. Sorry, I've been talking a lot. Thoughts? Lynn first.
Oh, I am still sort of trying to reorient myself here. I do think it's sort of amusing that Conscience is not going to have Simplicity as a servant. She doesn't want to have anything to do with him, but Love does. I mean, that seems appropriate, you know. Conscience is scrupulous. She's probably the smart one, but Love and Simplicity, you know, they go together. They're not going to get married.
But they won't get married, and that I thought was a really telling line. There's something really quite odd. I don't know if it's sad or odd, or I don't know. But love will not marry in any case with simplicity. But you may serve me, and I found that interesting in a way I don't really know how to articulate at this time. Lois, I saw a hand.
Well, simplicity really reminded me of people in the Res Publica. And I don't know if you've done the Three Estates, but John of the Commonweal in there. I mean, it's also the plebeian character. I think if she recognizes, if a couple of people recognize him as a fool, I wonder if that's because of the actor. I mean, do you think this was Robert Wilson, or, somebody that normally played fools, and that's why they have no problem at all, even, whatever he's dressed like, this is the fool.
I think it's generally ascribed to him. Whether it is or not, I don't know if there's actual solid evidence for that. But that seems to be what I've read. So maybe Sascha.
Right. Well, I think essentially what's interesting about Love is that she's basically how can I put it? She's very amused. She's very amused by the whole thing with simplicity, and unlike Conscience, she's willing to entertain the fact. She won't get close, but she seems to like the whole concept of the fool, doesn't she? She's very entertained by it. She won't go any further with it, but yeah, she's easily amused. Put it that way.
Liza.
I was surprised by Conscience's aversion to simplicity, because he seemed to have been the moral compass of the previous scene. He was onto everyone else's tricks, and he knew enough to avoid them, and I thought that would recommend him to Conscience. But I think one of the reasons she doesn't want to have him in her service is, as everyone else was saying, that maybe he is seen as a fool. And Conscience would not do anything like keep a fool for entertainment. Entertainment is not allowed. Conscience is not fun. But whereas Love is fun. And I don't know, maybe they'll make a good match. Maybe everything will end happily for them. And I do like his instant switch of motivations from marriage to food, because basically the three motivations for a clown are food, sex, and money. So if he doesn't get, amorous companionship, can he at least have some dinner?
Excellent. Alan.
I'm just wondering whether we're in fact just getting a metropolitan and rural dichotomy here. The ladies being ladies of London and looking down on this guy who's in rustic or semi-rustic working clothing as a miller.
I don't know if they're looking down on him. They are taking him on board, and they don't send him away or anything. It's just they're not going to marry. Love is not going to marry Simplest.
And Conscience doesn't want anything to do with him.
What is it that far?
Well, she can't. There seem to be rules. Love can't marry him, but he can serve her. And I think it's another prohibition that Conscience can't have him around her for some reason. I mean, he seems a lot simpler. He seems a lot more innocent when he's talking to the ladies, and a lot more knowing when he's talking to the vices.
Let's see if we can get some more evidence then. We're still not quite, probably beyond the halfway mark in the scene now. So the ladies exit. Simplicity is left behind, and of course, don't forget that there's still a fair number of less nice, scrupulous people wandering around. So exit Lady Love and Lady Conscience.
Fraud is the clubbish knave, and Usury the hard-hearted knave, and Simony the diamond-dainty knave, and Dissimulation the spiteful knave of spade. Come there any more knaves? Come there any more? I see 4 knaves stand in a row.
And let Fraud run at him, and let Simplicity run in and come out again straight. Wonderful U-turn off stage, straight back on again.
Away, drudge, begone, quickly.
Oh, I was. Do thrust my eyes out with a lady. What on earth does that mean?
Cards, I think. We've had the jacks, and the queen beats the jack.
Yeah, I was just going to say this whole thing reads like, how many knaves have we got? One knave, two a knave of spades. It's quite nicely done. I don't know if you have props or you would use props. It might make life easier for a modern production to have props. Anyway, lots of running around. Sorry, Liza.
There was a cards reference in the scene before, too, saying, now that all the cards in the stock be dealt out, now the 4 knaves come ruffling out, and to ruffle was to shuffle.
All right, nice. So we're getting a visual dynamic we could throw at this already. I'm liking that. So anyway, Simplicity has been doing the runaround gag, and now seems to actually exit. So Simplicity is gone, leaving the other reprobates alone.
Did you ever see gentlemen so rated at before? But it skills not. I hope one day to turn them both out of door.
We were arrantly flouted, railed at, and scoffed in our kind. That same conscience a vile terror to man's mind. Yet faith, I care not, for I have borne many more than these, when I was conversant with the clergy beyond the seas. And he that will live in this world will not care what such say. Their blossoms blown down, not to be found after May.
Faith, care that care will, for I care, not a point. I have shifted hitherto, and whilst I live, I will jeopard a joint. And at my death, I will leave my inheritor behind that shall be of the right stamp to follow my mind. Therefore, let them prate, till their hearts ache, and spit out their evil. She cannot quail me. She came in likeness of the great devil.
Mass, fraud. Thou hast a doughty heart to make a hangman of, for thou hast good skill to help men from the cough. But we are arrantly flouted, yet I thought she had not known me. But I perceive, though dissimulation do disguise him, conscience can see. What though conscience perceive it, all the world cannot decide. There be 1,000 places where we ourselves may provide. Look, sirs, here cometh a lusty lady towards us in haste. But speak to her, if you will, that we may be your place.
And enter Lady Lucre.
I pray thee do, for thou art the likeliest to speed.
Why, then I'll tout with a stomach in hope of good speed, fair lady. All the gods of good fellowship kiss ye, would say bless ye.
Thou art very pleasant and full of thy ripe, I would say, rhetoric.
Lady, you took me at the worst. I beseech you therefore to pardon my boldness, offending no more.
Why, we do. The matter is not great. But what wouldst thou have? How shall I call thee, and what is't thou dost crave?
I am called Dissimulation, and my earnest request is to crave entertainment for me and the rest, whose names are Fraud, Usury, and Simony, great carers for your health, wealth, and prosperity.
Fraud, dissimulation, usury, and simony. Now, truly, I thank you for proffering your service to me. You are all heartily welcome, and I will appoint straightway where each one in his office in great honor shall stay. But Usury, didst thou never know my grandmother, the old lady Lucre of Venice?
Yes, madam, I was servant unto her, and lived there in bliss.
But why camest thou into England, seeing Venice is a city where usury by lucre may live in great glory?
I have often heard your good grandmother tell that she had in England a daughter which her far did excel, and that England was such a place for lucre to bide, as was not in Europe and the whole world beside. Then, lusting greatly to see you and the country, she being dead, I made haste to come over to serve you in her stead.
Gramercy, usury, and I doubt not but that you shall live here as pleasantly, and pleasanter too, if it may be. But, Simony, from whence came ye, tell me?
My birth, nursery, and bringing up hitherto hath been in Rome, that ancient religious city. On a time the monks and friars made a banquet, whereunto they invited me, with certain other some English merchants, which belike were of their familiarity. So talking of many matters, amongst others one began to debate of the abundant substance still brought to that state. Some said the increase of their substance and wealth came from other princes, and was brought thither by stealth. But the friars and monks, with all the ancient company, said that it first came, and is now upholden by me, Simony, which the English merchants gave ear to. Then they flattered a little too much, as Englishmen can do for advantage, when increase it doth touch. And being a shipboard merry, and overcome with drink on a day, the wind served, they hoist sail, and so brought me away. And landing here, I heard in what great estimation you were, and made bold to your honour to make my repair.
Well, Simony, I thank thee. But as for fraud and dissimulation, I know their long continuance and after what fashion. Therefore, dissimulation, you shall be my steward, an office that every man's case by you must be preferred. And you, fraud, shall be my rent gatherer, my letter of leases, and my purchaser of land, so that many old bribes will come to thy hand. And usury, because I know you trusty, you shall be my secretary, to deal amongst merchants, to bargain and exchange money. And Simony, because you are a sly fellow and have your tongue liberal, I will place you over such matters as are ecclesiastical. And though we appoint sundry offices where now you are in, yet jointly we mean to use you together oft times in one thing.
Lady, we rest at your
command,
in aught we can or may.
Then, Master Davy, to my palace haste thee away, and will crafty conveyance, my butler, to make ready the best fare in the house to welcome thee and thy company. But stay, Dissimulation, I myself will go with thee. Gentlemen, I'll go before, but pray in any case, so soon as you please, resort to my place.
And exeunt Dissimulation and Lucre.
I warrant you, lady, we will not long absent be.
Hello, Simony, this fell out pat, so well as heart could wish. We are cunning anglers, we have caught the fattest fish. I perceive it is true that her grandmother told. Here is good to be done by use of silver and gold. And sith I am so well settled in this country, I will pinch all, rich and poor, that come to me.
And sirrah, when I was at Rome and dwelt in the friary, they would talk how England yearly sent over a great mass of money, and that this little island was more worth to the Pope than 3 bigger realms, which had a great deal more scope. For here were smoke pence, Peter pence, and Paul pence to be paid, besides much other money that the Pope's use was made. Why, it is but lately since the Pope received this fine. Not much more than 26 years. It was in Queen Mary's time. But I think England had never known what this gear had meant, if Fra Austin from the Pope had not hither been sent. For the Pope, hearing it to be a little island, sent him with a great army over, and winning the victory, he landed about Rye, Sandwich, or Dover. Then he elected laws, having people in subjugation. So for the most part, England hath paid tribute so long. I, hearing of the great store of wealth in the country, could not but choose to persuade myself the people loved Simony.
Stay your talk till some other time. We forget my lady.
Of troth you say true, for she bade us make haste. But my talk, methought, savoured well and had a good taste.
Bit annoyed at being cut off there, isn't he?
I was right in the middle of a good rant there.
Yeah, do you remember the good old days when we used to manage to fleece the good burghers of England blind? Oh, those were the days. It's interesting, really lots of callbacks there. I mean, Crafty Conveyance, that appears in Magnificence by Skelton, so that's going back. what, 50, 60 years. That's quite a callback. I'm sure there's probably reiterations of that name in other plays in between, and I can't remember which. But that's the earliest reference we got to that as a name for a character I don't think we're going to meet. But she's got a butler somewhere. So yeah, lots of things going on there. Lots of talking about foreign parts being great places for usury and money and making money and corruption of various kinds. Any thoughts about that? Anyone want to leap in? Liza.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting hints as to maybe how these characters might have been costumed or presented. Simony here talks about being in Rome and talking with the friary, and earlier he talks about being in touch with the clergy beyond the seas. So he seems very much to be a Catholic, and he may be wearing a monk's habit or a priest's habit, something like that. Or even something, or even a cardinal's habit. He could, depending on what the company has in their wardrobe. Usury, it hasn't been explicitly stated, and I'm kind of hoping it won't be. But there's an argument that usury could possibly be presented as a caricature of being Jewish. He comes from Venice. What do we know about Venice at this stage? That it's a mercantile city, which, unlike many other cities, has a Jewish quarter named the Ghetto. That's where our word ghetto comes from, is Venice's Jewish neighborhood, which was governed by its own laws and its own council and was walled off. At this time, a lot of people here know this, but for any listeners who don't, at this time, the Bible forbade a Christian person from lending money at interest, so that there was no motivation for a Christian person to lend money at all, unless it was a friend or family member, and that in some cities was the role that some Jewish people or families would play, especially in a merchant city like Venice, where everyone wants to exchange goods for currency to fund their next voyage. So at this time, I think it was Edward I had declared that Jews were expelled from England. It was illegal to be religiously Jewish here. But there were people who had been Jews and who converted religiously, or at least did so enough so that they could live. Edward gave them the choice of converting or leaving, and many chose to convert, whether simply for form's sake or not. We can't tell. We don't have many testimonies from those people, but it was not going to be legal to be Jewish again in England until Oliver Cromwell, weirdly, a religious extremist in some ways, but that didn't prevent people who were of Jewish descent from rising high. Queen Elizabeth's own physician, Dr. Lopez, was a Spanish man who had been I forget, it was himself or his family who had been Jewish and converted. But people in England, because they weren't likely to necessarily know many Jewish people in their everyday lives, they, on stage like this, Jewishness is still something you can scare your audience with, which, is in no way a good thing.
Yes, we as I said, we don't know what the depiction of usury would have been. There are no textual indicators so far.
Well, the mention of Venice.
Yeah, but nothing conclusive yet. Lois.
The other thing about usury, I think, is that usurers were normally depicted wearing furred gowns. I mean, that would be the distinguishing visual signal.
Other thoughts about what's going on in this scene? Eric?
I was just interested in the fact that, basically these vices seem imported They're not like to good Christian England of that time, whereas like fraud and dissimulation have been there quite a while, which is quite an interesting thing to note, I guess.
Yes, we have. Lynn.
I think there might be a sense that usury is not just loaning money at interest, but loaning money at exorbitant interest. At one point, I think this is later, in the late 16th or maybe early 17th century, the Parliament was obliged to define usury as loaning money at like something like more than 10% interest, because you just basically couldn't have a functioning economy without lending. So they had to sort of split that hair and say, okay, you can charge interest, and as long as it's not too high, it won't be legally usury. So, to us, the idea of lending money at interest is so ordinary. We're just like, why? It's hard to think that is something bad. But I think the implication was usually that the interest was exploited. It was exorbitant interest, so that having to borrow money might actually break a person, and often did. That was the idea anyway.
Yes, and also it's not really something for this session, but the way money functioned and lending and all of these things is actually a lot more complicated than we would think about it today. And there's all sorts of practices and things that I really don't want to go into, but are really interesting that we will look at some point further down the line. But anything else about the way the scene functions or the characters rather than the background of things? Alexandra, are you waving or just holding your hand up?
Sort of. I find it interesting that Dissimulation takes on herself to be the speaker on behalf of them as a group, a team. I don't know. Which is interesting because she is Dissimulation, and quite visibly so, presumably to I mean, all the other characters thus far seem to recognize Dissimulation as being a dissembler. So why would you trust that person's request for employment? And nevertheless Lucre goes, yeah, sure, I'll give you that, I'll give you that, I'll give you that. So it sets them up. I think there's quite, and it's not just that aspect. I think there's quite a little bit of small and subtle for us as a first reader characterization for all the vices that can really sort of distinguish them and identify them very clearly in these little bits of interaction. And I love the fact that we get all these, unrelatedly, I love the fact that we get all these sort of geographic details now, as well as we did earlier with, let's name check Gravesend, let's name check where, and Venice, and, Lucre of London, descended of Lucre of Venice, and all of that. It feels very, someone said earlier, cosmopolitan.
Okay.
Alan?
Just trying to remember, we did a history type play 3 or 4 weeks ago, the king and his young gang of advisors, and I'm getting strong flashbacks on that with effectively the characters in that, as I recall, had ordinary names rather than generic vice names, but the same game going on. And I'm damned if I can remember what the title of the play was that we did.
Woodstock?
Say again?
It was after Woodstock. It's more recent than that.
Unless you give me some more clues.
It was the one where there was an awful lot about fancy costuming and let's go and spend all the money on fancy dress.
That was Thomas of Woodstock.
Was it?
Yeah, no, but it appears in other things. It did that sort of thing turned up in there was you're right, there is something else. But we'll dredge our memories and try and gather that for tomorrow or later. Liza, I saw a hand earlier.
Oh, well, I've already talked a great deal, and it was just to answer Alexandra's point, and honestly, I forget most of what I was going to say, so let's wait on it.
Okay.
Oh, that dissimulation is basically the vice of the play, that we see him first, that he makes a speech to the audience, and he also gets given the highest position of steward by Lady Lucre. That's the position running the household, being closest to her. Lucre also says, we mean to use you all together for one thing, and that can be about as filthy as you want it to be.
Yes, there does seem to be a certain amount of flirting going on. Should also point out that at no point has the word vice been used, I think, unless I've got confused. Have I missed a vice?
No.
So yes, though it is drawing on that sort of tradition, I think we've got to be a bit careful about that as a term, because say the play isn't itself using it at this stage. We have one more scene to go through this session. We're going to run through the whole thing because it's not desperately long. So we have the entrance of Mercatore or Mercadorus rather, depending on spelling and editions. So it does seem to change, like an Italian merchant.
I judge in my mind that may not be very far from that place where dwells my lady Lucre. But here come a gentleman, so he do.
And enter Dissimulation.
Gentlemen, I pray you heartily, let me speak you. Pray you, do you not know a gentleman that Master Davy do call?
Yes, marry do I. I am he, and what would you withal?
Good, my friend, Master Davy, help me pray you heartily for some acquaintance with Madonna Lucre, your lady.
Sir, upon condition I will. Therefore, I would you should know that on me and my fellows you must largely bestow, whose names are Fraud, Usury, and Simony, men of great credit and calling, and to get my lady's goodwill and theirs, it is no small thing. But tell me, can you be content to win lucre by dissimulation?
Good, my friend. Do ask me no such a question. For he that will live in the world must be of the world sure, and the world will love his own, so long as the world endure.
I commend your wits, sir. But here comes my lady.
Enter Lady Lucre.
Come hither. Let's 3 crowns for to speak me.
Well, sir, I thank you. I will go speak for you.
Ah, Master Davy Dissimulation. What new acquaintance have you gotten there?
Such a one, madam, that unto your state hath great care. And surely in my mind the gentleman is worthy to be well thought on for his liberality, bounty, and great care to seek ye.
Oh, gentlemen, you are heartily welcome. How are you called, I pray you tell us?
Madonna may be a merchant and be called Signor Mercatore.
Ah, but I pray you tell me what countryman?
Maybe Madonna, an Italian.
Yet let me trouble ye. I beseech ye, whence came ye?
For salva vostra buona grazia, me come from Turkey.
Ah, gramercy. But, Signor Mercatore, dare you not to undertake secretly to convey good commodities out of this country for my sake?
Madonna, me do for love of you think no pain too much, and and to do anything for you will me not grudge. Me will forsake my father, mother, king, country, and more than that, me will lie and forswear myself for a quarter so much as my hat. What is that for love of Lucre me dare, or me will not do? Me care not for all the world, the great devil, nay, make my God angry for you.
Oh, you say well, Mercatore. Yet lucre by this is not thoroughly won. But give ear, and I will show thee what by thee must be done. Thou must carry over wheat, peas, barley, oats, and vetches, and all kind of grain, which is well sold beyond sea, and bring such merchants great gain. Then thou must carry beside leather, tallow, beef, bacon, bell, metal, and everything. And for these good commodities, Trifles into England thou must bring, as bugles to make baubles, colored bones, glass beads to make bracelets withal. For every day gentlewomen of England do ask for such trifles from stall to stall. And you must bring more, as amber, jet, coral, crystal, and every such babble that is slight, pretty, and pleasant. They care not to have it profitable. And if they demand wherefore your wares and merchandise agree, you must say, a jet will take up a straw, amber will make one fat, coral will look pale when you be sick, and crystal staunch blood. So with lying, flattering, and glozing, you must utter your ware, and you shall win me to your will, if you can deceitfully swear.
Think ye not that me have carried over corn, leather, beef, and bacon too all this while, and brought hither many babbles, these countrymen to beguile? Yes, shall me tell you, Madonna, me and my countrymen have sent over bell metal for make ordnance, and ordnance itself beside, that my country and other countries be so well furnished as this country, and has never been spied.
Now I perceive you love me, and if you continue in this still, you shall not only be with me, but command me when and where you will.
Lady, for to do all this and more for you, me be content. But I think some skull knave will put a bill in the parliament, for that such a thing shall not be brought here.
Oh, tush, Mercatore, I warrant thee thou needest not to fear. What an one do? There is some other will flatter and say they do no hurt to the country, and so with a slight fetch that bill away. And if they do not, so that by act of parliament it be passed, I know you merchants have many a slight and subtle cast, so that you will by stealth bring over a great store, and say it was in the realm a long time before. For being so many of these trifles here as there are at this day, you may increase them at pleasure when you send over sea. And do but give the searcher an odd bribe in his hand, I warrant you he will let you scape roundly with such things in and out the land. But, Signor Mercatore, I pray you walk in with me, and as I find you kind to me, so will I favor ye.
Thank you, my good lady. But Master Dissimulation, here is for your fellows, Fraud, Usury, and Simony, and say me give it them.
And exit Lucre and Mercatore.
Aye, marry, sir, these bribes have welcome been. Good faith, I perceive dissimulation, fraud, usury, and simony shall live in spite of love and conscience, though the heart's it doth grieve. Mass masters, he that cannot lie, cog, dissemble, and flatter nowadays is not worthy to live in the world, nor in the court to have praise.
And here enter Artifex and Artificer.
I beseech you, good Master Dissimulation, befriend a poor man to serve Lady Lucre, and sure, sir, I will consider it hereafter if I can.
What, consider me? Dost thou think that I am a bribe taker? Faith, it lies not in me to further thy matter.
Good Master Dissimulation, help me. I am almost quite undone, but yet my living here to a conscience I have won. But my true working, my early rising and my late going to bed is scant able to find myself, wife and children dry bread. To there be a sort of strangers in this country that work fine to please the eye, though it be deceitfully, and that which is slight and seems to the eye, well, shall sooner than a piece of good work be proffered to sell, and our Englishmen be grown so foolish and nice that they will not give a penny above the ordinary price.
Faith, I cannot help thee. 'Tis my fellow fraud must pleasure thee. Here comes my fellow fraud. Speak to him, and I'll do what I can.
And enter Fraud.
I beseech you, be good unto me, right honest gentleman.
Fraud is muted.
Why, and where to? What wouldst thou have me do?
That my poor estate you will so much prefer, as to get me to be a workman to Lady Lucre. And, sir, I doubt not but to please you so well for your pain, that you shall think very well of me, if I in her service remain.
Good fellow, Fraud, do so much, for I see he is very willing to live, and some piece of work to thee for thy pains he will give.
Well, upon that condition I will, but I care not so much for his gifts, as that he will by my name declare how he came to by his great thrift, and that he will set out in every kind of thing that fraud is a good husband, and great profit doth bring. Therefore, the next piece of work that thou dost make, let me see how deceitful thou wilt do it, for my sake.
Yes, I will, sir, of that you be sure. I'll honour your name while life doth endure.
Fellow Fraud, here comes a citizen, as I deem.
Nay, rather a lawyer, some pettifogger he doth seem.
And enter a lawyer.
Gentlemen, my earnest suit is to desire ye that unto your lady's service you would help me. For I am an attorney of the law and pleader at the bar, and have a great desire to plead for Lady Lucre. I have been earnest, sir, as is needful in such a case, for fear another come before me and obtain my place. I have pleaded for love and conscience till I was weary. I had many clients and many matters that made my purse light and my heart heavy. Therefore, let them plead for conscience that list for me. I'll plead no more in such as brings nothing but beggary.
Sir, upon this condition that you will keep men in the law 10 or 12 years for matters that are not worth a straw, and that you will make an ill matter seem good and firmable indeed, faith, I am content for my part. You shall speed.
Nay, fellow, thou knowest that Simony and Usury hath an ill matter in law at this time. Now, if thou...
Yes, that's fraud.
Well, fine.
Nay, fellow, thou knowest that Simony and Usury hath an ill matter in law at this time. Now, if thou canst handle the matter so subtle and fine as to please that ill matter good and firmable at the bar, then thou shalt show thyself worthy to win Lady Lucre. Therefore, tell me if you can, or will do it, or no. If you do it, be sure to get my lady's goodwill ere you go.
By my honesty, well remembered. I had quite forgot. 'Tis about that a fortnight ago fell out, the matter I wot.
Tush, sir, I can make black white and white black again. Tut, he that will be a lawyer must have 1,000 ways to feign, and many times we lawyers do one befriend another, and let good matters slip. Tut, we agree like brother and brother. Why, sir, what shall let us to rest and turn the law as we list, seeing we have them printed in the palm of our fist? Therefore, doubt you not, but make bold report that I came and will plead their ill cause in good kind of sort.
Of troth, how likest thou this fellow, Dissimulation?
Marry, I like him well. He is a cunning clerk and one of our profession. But come, sir, go with us, and we will prefer you.
Good Master Fraud, remember me.
Leave thy prating, I will, I tell thee.
Good Master's Dissimulation, think on me.
Thou art too importunate and greedy.
Come after dinner, or some other time, when we are at leisure.
And they all exit apart from Artifex, who's left behind.
Come after dinner or some other time, I think so indeed. For full little do they think of a poor man's need. These fellows will do nothing for pity and love, and thrice happy are they that have no need them to prove. God, he knows the world is grown to such a stay that men must use fraud and dissimulation too, or beg, by the way. Therefore I'll do as the most doth. The fewest shall laugh me to scorn, and be a fellow amongst good fellows to hold by St. Luke's horn.
And he exits. And yes, even though we didn't identify the play that Alan was thinking of earlier, Thomas of Woodstock is feeling very connected to this play in various ways. Anyone feel the spirit of Trevelyan coming rising from the ether here? Also, still the connection with Looking Glass for London and England feels very strong as well. The cry of no cow felt very strong here. Once again, I like Dissimulation wanting the lawyer to basically create as many Jarndyce and Jarndyce situations as available. Of just going, yeah, if you're going to take on any cases, make sure they last forever for absolutely no reason at all. That's what lawyers do. Or some lawyers do.
Allegedly.
Yes. Yeah, it's really interesting that the array of characters we are introduced to in this scene, as the establishment of Lady Lucre, starts kicking off with all of these people working on their behalf. We have the pantomimic delight. We seem to have just lost Eric there, which is a shame because he was superb. As Mercatore, it was. I said in the chat, I've basically played that character in a pantomime, and the way it's written, it's it's maybe problematic to a degree, but it is also incredibly fun, and and these array of characters, they're all really nicely, boldly told as well. The artificer's quite good, the lawyer's quite good. I think they've all got something an actor can grab hold of when they come on, even if that character doesn't go anywhere. I don't know whether these characters do go anywhere. People will remember this scene because of those characters. So thoughts, Liza first.
Well, the going back to Mercatore, because we just did the peddler's prophecy, where the peddler castigates people who carry good things out of the country and bring back terrible immigrants who do terrible things, and basically that's what Mercatore does. He carries food and necessaries out of the country, and he brings back trifles, and you're not supposed to like the foreign trifles, even though they're really pretty and well made. And damn these immigrants with their incredible skills that English people don't have, coming over and making things that are pretty. But one of the interesting things that Mercatore says he does is he takes bell metal out of the country to make ordnance. Bell metal is an alloy of copper and tin. It was used, it was literally what church bells were made out of because it was resonant when struck. You also used it to make early cannon before they started making them from brass. They or I don't know, I might have that wrong, but basically the resources of England are being taken out of England. Simony already said that the Catholic Church wanted England back, so the implication is that England is exporting these precious metals, or not precious, but these hard to make and hard to find metals, in order to make cannon to be used against them. So.
Yes, I mean the play does seem to have an agenda. It would be fair to say. I don't think it's just to say this character is saying this. It does seem to be fair to say that the play is nudging in that direction at the very least. I'm glad you brought up the Peddler's Prophecy, because some people think that there is a authorial connection. And that's entirely one of the reasons why I'm glad you're here today, because to see what you thought of that, maybe something for later on in the process. Certainly thematically they feel very similar, if formally they are very different. So yeah, I wrote in my margin, you can't trust foreigners basically what seems to be this play keeps pushing us towards, which is increasingly making it quite difficult to do anything with. But the spirit of Frisky Ball also is alive and well in this play as well. I said alive in this play. This play seems to be the one of the well springs of such characters. Other thoughts about this scene, Lynn?
Well, it's interesting that many years before Adam Smith, someone was observing the problems that get created with laissez-faire economics. Just let the market decide, and you have, again, the export of essential goods because there's enough of a demand for luxury goods to make that profitable. It's hard for a skilled craftsman to compete. I do feel I kind of most relate to Artifex. Someone who has skills. He's a tradesperson. He's got a way to make a living. He has a valid and a thing to contribute to economic life, but he's struggling and has to basically become dishonest in order to make a living. So I really feel for Artifex. And this is but quite apart from that, it's interesting how sophisticated the observations are about the problems in an increasingly complex mercantile economy, an economy that's just now beginning to move away from an agrarian economy to a trade economy, and the problems that creates.
Yes, the question about the artificer here, what he can do, and that question of becoming corrupt as everybody else, because if everybody else is corrupt, what else can you do? And I'm sure we've had that. That might have been in Looking Glass as well. That's appeared in a couple of plays that we've looked at as a theme. And again, it also turns up in Peddler's Prophecy. As you literally have a merchant and an exporter, and this scene mirrors one of the scenes, scene 2 in that play, in that thematic sense. Other thoughts about the scene itself? The lawyer was again also rather enjoyable. You see, we're allowed to attack lawyers. That seems to be fine. Though we shouldn't attack the principle of the rule of law or the ideals of access to justice, which is currently massively under threat. Alexandra, how did you find being a lawyer?
I agree with you that it's a very precise attack to the law. It's to the people. It's an attack on the people who manipulate the law to make black white and white black as they please. And the way in which the lawyer who is not a vice presents his methodology in a very vice-like way. That was interesting. I wonder about where the delineation between these characters is supposed to happen, between these types and these specifics is supposed to happen, and whether it's just that the characters that are presented as type or as vice have that kind of name because they appear throughout the play, whereas these other instances are, and by the way, there are other bad things that happen in the world, but we don't have time to focus on them, so let's just tick that box and move on. Don't know. But yes, it's fun. If he is a one-scene wonder, that was fun to do.
Yes, I'm not sure if he does actually appear again. I suspect possibly not, though we will. You'll all be glad to know we will see Mercatore once again.
Hey.
He will return.
There was a lot of "It's a me, Mercatore" in the chat. I forget.
It was. It was written with a tradition going back that far. I mean, it makes a difference from Mummerset, doesn't it? Which we've been having a lot of recently.
And Comedy Dutchman as well.
Yes. Oh, Eric is back, coming back online. Hello, Eric.
Hello. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Welcome back. We were just discussing your character. We loved Mercatore.
Oh God, that was very uncomfortable. I don't know. I mean, I can do impressions of Italian sort of speakers and stuff, but it's just kind of weird to do it that way, especially because it was written sort of that way as well. It's not as if he just kind of what do you call it? I don't know. It's not as if, you know, I just put on an accent. It was actually written like, you know, that's me, so and so forth.
Yes, he's written as a stereotype, and you know, it's the fact we recognise that as not fundamentally changing as a phrasing, as a stereotype idea of how things are phrased as well. Lois, I saw a hand.
Yeah, I was just thinking that it really is a stereotype of foreign accent, because he kept getting the je sounds as sh, which is more like French, if anything. And I mean, no Italian should have any trouble pronouncing some of the sounds that he was actually getting wrong. I mean, it's just a general idea of how foreigners talk, I think.
Okay, we're into extra time, so I'm going to go around the room. Eric, you did miss a brief exposition on the potential connection between Peddler's Prophecy and this play. So if you've been noticing any similarities or differences, they may be real, they may not. And your opinion on that. Let that percolate for a moment. I'll come back to you in a moment. I think one other point I should throw in, which is leading you a bit, but I think it's useful data to have at this stage, is it's called The Three Ladies of London, but they only actually have two. We've met Lady Love today. Lady Love is doubling as Lady Lucre. In the script, it is actually noted. So she exits. You are not going to see Lady Love for a while until the end, when there's a quick change moment written in the script.
This is very meta.
Yeah. So it's more two ladies of London, because it's going to be Conscience and Lucre are going to be the two ladies. Presumably the original company that had this, probably about 8 actors, just about doubles for 8, had 2 boys playing women. And that was their limit. It may not function that way, I don't know, but that seems to be the doubling, and the script explicitly states that. Whether it got changed later on when it got around to being printed, I do not know. But just throw that wild card into the pack. You're not going to see love for a while. There's no love for a while, guys. I'm sorry. I'm taking your love away.
No love. That's worse than no cow.
Okay, let's go for some final thoughts. So, Tamara, how did you find the play so far? Questions, issues, predictions? I like predictions.
Predictions are tricky. I see, the problem is, as a foreigner, I have a massive problem. But I really want to like this play, mostly just because I'm having too much fun with the character. Dissimulation is just a lot of fun. I just like my tricksters, so thank you for letting me read that. Yeah, it's. I just wish it was less problematic.
Immigrant solidarity fist bump.
Yeah.
It's this is not the first play. It's not going to be the last that we've hit this this. Should we call it a road bump? And maybe the play will resolve itself in ways that will undermine our problems, or it may reinforce. I don't know. We're only under a third of the way in.
What it shows us that. You know, what it shows us is that people trying to portray immigration as some kind of sudden and massive crisis that's going to rob nations of their identity, we can literally point to plays like this and say, people have been making this argument for literally centuries. The history of Europe and the history of the world is the history of movement of people for one reason or another, and you know, the identity you are protecting may not be what you think it is, for actually ever, as Alexandra puts it in chat.
Lois.
Well, what people have also been saying for centuries about England is that it's a country where people hate foreigners. I mean, descriptions of England from this period always say that. I don't know whether they also say it about other countries. I mean, I haven't read, you know, accounts of France, Germany, etc., saying that they all hate foreigners, but they certainly say it about England.
We've all seen that part in German history where they did, in fact, hate foreigners. Let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
And the 16th century, just how
Yeah.
far back does it go, you know?
Yeah, there's a duck for mentioning Shakespeare. I don't know whether there's some kind of waterfowl for mentioning
Anyway, that just let's lighten the mood a bit. Alexandra, can you lighten the mood with your final thought?
Yes, no, but I can completely distract. One thing that I've really liked about this is something that we've been pointing out throughout is this that the characters are, even the ones that had once seen wonders, they're very clearly constructed within the very little text that they have. And I think with the bunch of vices that we meet at the beginning, as I was saying earlier, it's not just the fact that they are defined by their name and their, I am this and I do this. This is my opinion. The verse would lead us to believe that that's what we're looking at, but actually there's a lot of subtlety and a lot of detail in them for an actor to play with, to mine, and to have fun with. But I do think that it's, we've had 3 scenes and introduced a hell of a lot of characters. So in terms of putting this on as a production, you would need I think that's why the card deck references keep coming back, because that might be, the solution they used or that they're suggesting towards keeping in the audience's mind, keeping clear who the hell is what and what they want, etc. I really like that it is so much fun whilst also being so problematic, because I think that's something that we as an audience can really get behind, or kind of not get behind, but be impacted by, and kind of give up. It creates the potential for us as the performers to give an audience cognitive dissonance. So I'm all for that, and I hope it keeps happening.
Eric, you were in on Peddler's Prophecy, where the question of, at the end of the session, despite our many reservations, we did have lengthy discussions about what the play meant, what was going on, what our own opinions were. So as a talking point, perhaps this play succeeds, though perhaps also not. Your thoughts about this play?
Well, I find it interesting that the song actually promotes the plot. It moves forward, whereas in Peddler's Prophecy we didn't actually get the songs, but it also the songs actually make more sense in this, because obviously in Peddler's Prophecy they just kind of went, well, we're gonna sing now even though we don't like each other, and that suddenly solved everything for the entire scene. But this one, I don't know, it was that moment of, oh, they actually said it. Oh, yeah, he's Italian. They're going to say it with an accent. Okay, yeah, I'm actually saying the words now. But it was also a lot more subtle, sort of the stereotype of the Italian merchant or / lover / I don't know, groveler, I don't know what you would call him.
Smooth operator.
Yeah. Sort of smooth talker. It's oh, I will do anything for you. Yes. So that kind of, I don't know. It's kind of shady, but weird, and sort of could be the verge of the mafia, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, there is a sense what are he how are he and Lady Lucre sealing the deal. Sort of hit my mind. Lois, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I was interested in the fact that actually it's presumably purely accidental that Lucre and Love are doubling, but of course it makes all sorts of interesting allegorical points. Love can't marry simplicity. She seems to be solitary, but she can have him as her servant because Love is normally, well, in classical mythology, it's a child anyway, also simple and innocent. And Lucre, on the other hand, is clearly promiscuous, and everybody wants her, and she seems to be happy with pretty well anybody. And there is an awful lot of imagery around money and coining. Coining images, through sex and so on. And one reason I think usury was regarded with such horror was that it was making money from money. I mean, generating money out of itself, in a sort of sexual sense as well.
Lynn, final thoughts?
Yes, I recognize the problem that Lois was just talking about. This idea of making barren metal breed, was that there was something kind of sexual in people's aversion to it. So, yeah. What I wanted to throw out is that not that the xenophobia is not there, it's definitely there and it's definitely important, but at the same time, let's recognize that that's not the only problem that this text is trying to grapple with. Fraud and dissimulation seem to be homegrown vices, and the lawyer is definitely an English type. All the bad things that fraud did are not just generalized. I mean, they're local, Greater London scams that we talk about. So there's a lot of homegrown corruption that the play is trying to confront as well.
Excellent. Alan, final thought?
Well, I think if you're looking for a sponsor for a production of this, the Daily Mail might be a good place to start. You know, with the xenophobia involved. It's moving at a cracking pace, and I think it would need to be staged with pace to make it work, because the four vices that we've seen, and I know that's a simplification because they're not described as such, but they do need to be almost a crosstalk act, I think, to make it work. But it's certainly enjoyable.
It's interesting how the in a sense, I though they do have different functions and different elements to them, they sort of function as a blob. These are the bad people, and they're on stage, and I'm not sure watching this at any given time, except when they're doing specific things, it matters whether you're always cognizant of precisely which one they are. I may be wrong about that, and it might be terribly confusing, but I do wonder whether just simply they are a phalanx of badness that you can dip in and out of. Sascha, final thought?
Not much really to add, except that it makes sense with the pairing of Love and Lucre. I was just saying in the chat, it's almost giving a little bit of a hint as to how complex love actually is, looking at the different sides of it, almost like a Gemini effect, and they show the two different sides of things, almost like a two-faced scenario. You could, if we wanted to really go analytical with it, you could almost say that love is almost like, as it's depicted in the first half. Love in this instance is the tentative approach. And then you've got Lucre, who basically displays the side that everybody wants to give into. And, in a way, you could say the same with most of the characters in this play as well, sort of showing what they're really thinking, showing what their deepest desires are. It's a very honest, fast-paced play, which is really, really refreshing to see, actually. Looking forward to tomorrow.
Liza, final thought.
Well, I agree with everyone who said it's a shame this play is so problematic, because it's written in such a way that it's really fun to do, and I expect it would be really fun to watch. I'm sure. I wonder if there's a way that the problematic bits could be defanged or excised without harming, without doing too much distortion of the essence of the play, because it would be fun to put this on stage in some form. It's just, I forget how many of us here are immigrants to Britain or to, but There. Anyway, immigrants are good, and this play is problematic.
Well, I mean, there is always the question. Of course, we're under a third of the way into the text. We don't know how it resolves, and just because this is what the characters are doing, it does seem that the play is pitching in that direction. But maybe the play is much more complicated than that. Who knows? It could just be a case of course, it could also just be a case that it's Robert Wilson making oppression fun, that's perhaps. Just what you like doing. Who knows? We'll hopefully have a better idea in 2 days' time when we have finished doing this play. And of course, we've got the sequel to look forward to. So there's all sorts of room for more problematic texts from Robert Wilson. There's another prophecy play which is by him as well. So there's so much more potential for harm and hurt, as well as amusement and fun. And on that cheerful note, I'd like to thank all the readers for today, for all their time, and for you for watching. And goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.